So evictions are not about rent. Can you say it with me? Evictions are not about rent. Say it louder. Evictions are not about rent. So I want to tell you about this campaign to challenge evictions in New York, but to a room full of communications experts, what I want you to know is that the power of community organizing can shift the dominant narrative from being about what we think we can get to being about what we deserve and what we need. In New York City, landlords try to legally and forcibly evict close to 1 million people every year. Every year. In the Bronx alone, 2,000 people go through our city's housing courts every day. They wait on long lines in all kinds of weather, in all kinds of health conditions, to get into that court to protect their homes. And when they get inside the court, do you think they find justice? Nah, they find crowded hallways and landlord attorneys screaming at them, do you have it or don't you? And almost always the person asking that question is a white male attorney with some kind of wealth. And almost always the person answering that question is a black or brown woman who's been denied access to wealth. And always the person answering that question should be at the center of our movements. And would you show up to a tenant meeting after being treated like that in housing court? Evictions are not about rent. They are about race, they are about class, they are about power. Evictions literally say that a landlord's right to profit is more important than a tenant's right to a home. And that right to profit will be upheld by our state court systems and by our state police. Evictions are violent. And in those housing courts, landlords have always had attorneys, and tenants have never had attorneys. And so what's happened, and this is all over the country, is that housing court has been weaponized by the landlord lobby to extract private profit and to displace and to gentrify. And so what happens? So a few years ago, a group in the Bronx called CASA, where I used to work, said we have to change this. And they built on generations of those who have come before us in New York City. And they developed a campaign to reform the Bronx housing court. They collected 1,000 surveys. They did observations. They did focus groups. They released the first ever report about the housing court from the perspective of the people that go through the court. And one of the demands, right to counsel, started to surface. And people in New York, people on our side, said, y'all are crazy. You're never going to win that. It doesn't exist anywhere in the country. You're being naive. And we said, great. Because the job of organizing is to make the impossible possible. And the folks going through that court don't have a choice but to fight for what we need. So we formed a citywide coalition with tenant organizing groups across the city, as Liz said, with unions, with disability advocates, senior advocates, academics, a lot of people. And we formed the citywide coalition. We ran a campaign. We collected 7,000 signatures. We did town halls. We followed the mayor around. We did skits. We did a lot. And 3 years later, New York City became the first city in the country to make it a right to have an attorney when you're facing an eviction. You can clap. Okay. Right? So we won. We won. So can we stop organizing around this thing now? I wish sometimes. No. We can't stop organizing because if evictions are not about rent, then right to counsel is not about attorneys. You can say that one too. Right to counsel is not about attorneys. So what is it about? It is about interrupting and disrupting that place where evictions have become normal. And it is about creating space to build the power of the tenant movement. It is about unleashing organizing potential. It is about saying to every person that stood on that line that people just like you saw a problem, devised solutions, and created the power to win it. You are powerful. So what else can we do? What else can we win? Can we demand that landlords reduce rents? Can we take over land and build community-controlled housing? Can we finally build the power to shift the dominant narrative to say housing should be a right? That should be the thing we are all saying. That is what we need. So Right to Counsel is about creating space to build this movement. It's about putting up the shield to sharpen the sword. And here's the thing that nobody tells you about winning. So I'm going to tell you, so you can't say you didn't know. That the people who implement the win had nothing to do with the win. And they might not even like the thing that you won, right? And so if we had left the implementation up to city officials and government officials and well-intentioned tenant attorneys, despite their intentions, they are not the people at risk of eviction. And so we have to organize around implementation. Narrative shift number 3. How we win is as important as what we win. You can say that loud. How we win is as important as what we win. Thank you. So in New York City, we're implementing it through organizing. We're knocking on thousands of doors. We're holding town halls. We're creating new websites and new resources. We created a toolkit to help other cities learn about our work. We're working on a documentary to help hold down this narrative. And we are honored to work with tenant organizing groups in other cities who see eviction defense as a shield to help sharpen their sword. Because this crisis of evictions is national. And in San Francisco, the tenant movement there, they ran a campaign and won a ballot initiative to make San Francisco the second city in the country to have a right to an attorney. And just 2 months ago, the tenant movement in New York won a really amazing victory, turning a bad bill into a bill that's better than ours, and made Newark, New Jersey, the third city in the country to make it a right to have an attorney when you're fighting an eviction. So in just 1 year, 3 cities made the impossible possible by following the lead of the tenant movement. I just forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, right, good, thank you. Good. So there's all this buzz about right to counsel, and people are asking us questions, and the problem with some of this buzz is that not everybody interested in the movement has gotten narrative shift number 1 or narrative shift number 2. And it's not totally their fault, because the media hasn't been that interested in covering the organizing work. They're interested in the eviction numbers and the data and the sound bites, and all of a sudden this amazing organizing victory in New York City, led by tenants most impacted, has been reduced to a simple formula. A progressive mayor, I really quotes, okay? A cost-benefit analysis, some good people on the inside, and copy, paste, repeat, boom. As if organizing is about policy. And the problem with telling the story of what we won without telling the story of how we won is that it reduces our own potential and our own power. And at a moment in our history when so many people want to be involved but don't know how, what are we going to tell them? There's a recipe to follow and some golden place at the end of some road and you can just pop in a formula? Or are we going to tell them that organizing requires us to analyze problems, to develop solutions, and to build power within ourselves and with each other? Organizing is not about giving people power, and it's not about having better people in power make decisions for us. It is about finding, claiming, and building power within ourselves and with each other to create our own solutions, to restructure and to reshape how decisions get made in the first place. It is about... It's about shifting power for the long term. Thank you.